Welcome. Today we will be talking a little bit about teaching grammar in context. Our objectives for a short time together are for you to be able to explain what teaching grammar in context is and why it's beneficial for the learners in our classes, to identify where to find the grammar sections in the units throughout EntreCultures, and to use those resources to teach grammar in a different way, inductively, using the discovery process. Let's look at two approaches to teaching grammar, one traditional and one not so traditional. The first one is the deductive or explicit way of teaching. This is what most teachers and students are used to. The teacher tells the class the name of the language structure they'll be studying, goes over the rules, and then the first activities are rote type of practice, probably having students fill in verb boxes, conjugate isolated verbs with a subject, filling in the blanks of sentences that students don't even need to read to complete. Let's contrast this with the inductive approach. This is where you allow students to see examples of the language in use, preferably in authentic resources and/or contexts. And then, after they've been exposed to it and understand its very meaning, we guide them to think about how and why that structure is used, to see or figure out the patterns, and to begin to make sense of it. We co-construct the grammar rules with the students, as opposed to having our students be passive receivers of the knowledge. Then, once they have that knowledge, they use the structures to communicate in performance-based tasks, not rote drills. ACTFL agrees that an inductive method of teaching grammar, where students are the ones exploring, discovering, and using the grammar concepts, will lead to a greater understanding of the concepts, which in turn leads to increased communication. ACTFL thinks it's so important that they have included it as one of their 6 core practices that all language teachers should be doing and providing for their students. Now that you know a little more about what it is and why it's important, you may be wondering, how do you teach grammar inductively? There are many different modes for teaching grammar inductively. Today, I want to go over the basic steps that many of those models include and walk you through a sample lesson showing how to teach grammar in context. The approach we use is called the discovery approach. The first step is to present an example of the language being used in some sort of text, such as a dialogue or a diary entry. You want your students to see or hear how it is used naturally. At this point, the activities are focused on students understanding the meaning of the text, not the grammar. Step 2 is going to be highlighting that grammar by bringing students' attention to it. We have it bolded in our textbook so that students notice it. Next, you co-construct with your students the rules. Start to do this by asking them some guiding questions to help them make predictions about the grammar rule or structure, and work with the students to co-construct the rules. Then you allow the students to test their hypothesis by giving them some more input with the structure. They will rework anything they need to, and you will help them confirm the rule. Finally, students will move from the receptive mode to the productive mode and start communicating with the target structure. Let's walk through our sample lesson using this model. The grammar sections in EntreCultures are called Découvrons because our students are discovering the language in context to be able to use it to communicate. Our sample lesson is from EntreCultures Level 1, Unit 2, and is Découvrons 3. Note that there are 3 Découvrons sections per unit. The first step of the discovery process is for the students to process the text for meaning. In this case, the text is dialogue between Océane and Félix about things related to their school day. This step is really just using the text as an interpretive activity. You aren't pointing out or talking about grammar at all here. You just want students to read and get the gist of the text. You could read it aloud to them. You could have them read it silently or aloud. You can do it as you would do any reading you have done in the past. Ask a few comprehension questions to make sure they have understood what Océane and Félix are talking about. Next, you are going to start to talk about grammar. You're going to point out the structures that are in bold-faced font in the text. As you can see here, our target structure is present tense verbs. In addition to pointing out the bolded words, I may ask them to use a T-chart to identify the bolded words and guess what the infinitive forms of those verbs are. Now it's time for students to make some predictions about how and why these structures are being used. Each Découvrons has a corresponding découverte, which is where you'll find the guiding questions that will help your students to start to process the target language structure. Students can think about these guiding questions in a think, pair, share format using this graphic organizer. First, they think about the questions on their own, and then they compare their ideas with a partner. Finally, as a class, you can co-construct the rules. Now that they have an idea about how and why the target structure is used, they need to confirm their hypotheses. In Découvrons, we have a corresponding video also called Découvrons. In these videos, students will see a conversation between two animated students as an animated teacher walks them through a version of the discovery process. Let's watch a short clip of the video. There are activity sheets that accompany the videos from the learning site that students can do online or that can be printed out. The final step is to have students begin to communicate using the structure. You'll notice the activities always move from the receptive to the productive mode, or from providing students with more input of the structures being used to creating output. In this first activity, Activité 24, you can see students are using and seeing the language in context with meaning attached. They are getting more input with the new structures. They're reading some statements from Océane and Félix and then need to choose the correct answer for them. In the next activité, Activité 25, we see there are 3 steps to it. In the first step, they are reading an email from Hamid about a typical school day and then need to answer some questions, getting a little more input before being asked to create the output. In step 2, they respond to his email. And in step 3, they're making some cultural comparisons between Hamid's day and their own day. Notice the reminder of verbs they have previously learned in the rappel and can incorporate into their writing, as well as the quick grammar description of what they have just learned about in the video if they need a little support. Activité 26 has students not only identifying the subject pronoun for the sentence, but has them put the sentences in order to show that they understand the context. The next activities are in the context of creating a blog about your school. In the first steps, the output is scaffolded by having students create logical sentences with a given information. Then they will use those sentences as models to create their own that are true about their school, so that in step 3, they can use that information in the video blog they will record in our online learning site. The final activity of this grammar section is to add an interview to the blog. Once again, notice how the activity is broken down into steps to provide the needed scaffolding. Students can see success in using their new language structures. If your students need additional practice, we have a variety of activités supplémentaires for your students to do. They range from more traditional types of fill-in-the-blank activities to more proficiency-based activities, ones like these presentational writing and speaking, or even interpersonal writing activities. This is a short tutorial on how to teach grammar inductively while using EntreCultures. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@waysidepublishing.com, and we'll provide the extra support you need. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.